Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight. A thorn in the establishment's side to the very end. Heroic renegade Nadine Dorries, the best culture secretary in recent memory, has gone down swinging in her resignation letter with a blistering attack on the Prime Minister and the anti-democratic forces that steered Rishi Sunak to power. And as the Tories stare down the barrel of electoral oblivion in my digest next, I'll explain why Dorries is completely right to call out dark forces depriving Brits of democracy. Then my superstar panel weigh in. And tonight, I'm joined by Dame Andrea Jenkins, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. Plus, as people smugglers continue to advertise their wicked services on TikTok, declaring that they are in charge of Britain's borders, I'll ask the great Nigel Farage what can be done about the Chinese social media app. And Sadiq Khan's ULEZ nightmare will expand tomorrow, while Wales Labour government enforces a 20-mile-per-hour blanket limit on built-up roads. So is Starmer's party waging war on motorists? Neil Oliver joins me to investigate. Elsewhere, Spain continues to be gripped by this kiss between their football president and World Cup winning captain. But is that sexual assault, or has it been blown out of all proportion? Lilani Daldine and Anna May Mangan go head-to-head soon. And as they're all pictured arriving together for a church service at Balmoral, is it right for William and Kate to welcome Prince Andrew back into the royal fold? Lady Victoria Harvey, now she's a big Andrew ally, and Nina Mishkov, a member of the Sussex squad, live in the studio to duke it out in the clash. Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier also standing by with all the latest royal bombshells. We'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages as ever. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Happy Bank Holiday Monday. As you can see, though, all of the teams here behind the scenes and in front of the cameras. Hope, by the way, you didn't have any trouble getting back to the UK. This is the busiest travelling day. And, of course, there was a bit of issues. A few issues, weren't there, with the air traffic control. I did manage to get back on time, though, from France. It was great to be with you. Hope you had a brilliant break. Do stay with us the next 2 hours. We're going to kick off, though, with the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. More than 500 flights to and from the UK are estimated to have been cancelled this bank holiday, leaving passengers stranded after an air traffic control failure. The technical fault meant flight plans had to be inputted manually by controllers. National Air Traffic Services say it has now identified and remedied the problem. However, thousands of airline passengers are facing delays of up to 12 hours, despite the failure being fixed. Many of those are stuck at airports across Europe or even having been stuck on planes, and those delays could well stretch into tomorrow. Police do have the resources they need to meet a government pledge to crack down on crime. That's according to Suella Braverman, who says police have disregarded theft and burglaries for too long, despite record numbers of officers across the UK. Labour's criticised it as a staggering admission of 13 years of Tory failure. The Home Secretary says the force must follow all lines of inquiry.
Police have responded positively to my challenge, my request, in committing nationwide to indeed following every reasonable line of inquiry. So that now means that in the event of a car theft, phone theft, robbery, a burglary, if there's CCTV footage of an incident, if there's dashcam footage, if there's smartphone footage, GPS tracking evidence, a victim can produce evidence of an online resale of a stolen item, the police must follow up on those leads.
Donald Trump's criminal trial on charges of attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election result will begin on the 4th of March next year. Trump's trial in Washington, D.C. will start one day before Super Tuesday. That's when many states nominate their Republican or Democratic presidential candidate. Donald Trump is the favourite to win the Republican nomination. The presidential election itself takes place 8 months later on November the 5th. Trump is also due to appear in court in Georgia, that's in just over a week's time, to enter a plea in a separate criminal charge of plotting to undermine the election result in that state. And staying in the US, 2 people have been killed after a helicopter crashed into a residential building in Florida. A warning, we are about to show you video of the crash, which some viewers may find distressing. Footage posted online shows the fire rescue helicopter in flames before it breaks apart in midair and spirals to the ground. It's understood 1 crew member died and a second person on the ground was also killed. Another 4 people have been injured and taken to hospital. Prosecutors in Spain have launched a preliminary sexual assault investigation into the head of the country's football federation. Luis Rubiales is refusing to resign after kissing Jenny Hermoso on the lips at the Women's World Cup final. He says it was consensual. She has denied that. He's since been banned by FIFA, the world governing body, for 90 days. The Spanish Federation has been holding an extraordinary meeting today to discuss the crisis. That is it for the moment here on GB News. I'll be back with more in an hour's time. Now it's over to Dan.
Oh, how easy it has been for the MSM these past few weeks, hectoring and bullying Nadine Dorries, a working-class, self-made star novelist turned Conservative champion who became the best culture secretary of recent times. She's everything the establishment cannot stand, of course. A BBC-slaying, Boris-backing, highly popular woman of the people who almost tripled her mid-Bedfordshire majority to over 25,000 and has always refused to march to the beat of their drum. So, for the Prime Minister, installed in an anti-democratic coup backed by his media charms, she is a far easier target than this drifting government facing electoral annihilation if something doesn't dramatically change. After all, it worked hard to successfully hound Sunak's arch-rival Johnson out of Parliament altogether because of the spurious Partygate witch hunt. But that's why Nadine's excoriating resignation letter, released via the Mail on Sunday yesterday, is a hammer blow to Sunak and his zombie government. Finally, a Tory MP has been prepared to speak the truth about the undemocratic forces destroying this great party by wresting control away from its members. It's disturbing, but for the sake of British democracy, Nadine must be listened to.
Having witnessed firsthand as Boris Johnson and then Liz Truss were taken down, I decided that the British people had a right to know what was happening in their name. Why is it that we've had 5 Conservative Prime Ministers since 2010, with not one of the previous 4 having left office as the result of losing a general election? That is a democratic deficit which the Mother of Parliaments should be deeply ashamed of, and which, as you and I know, is the result of the machinations of a small group of individuals embedded deep at the centre of the party and Downing Street.
Now, I can vouch for everything Nadine has said there. It's why I backed Lord Cruddas' Conservative Democratic organisation earlier this year. But to what end has Sunak used the power he spent years wresting from a democratically elected and highly popular PM? Sadly, as Nadine ruthlessly but fairly points out, he's squandered it all.
Since you took office a year ago, the country is run by a zombie parliament where nothing meaningful has happened. What exactly has been done, or have you achieved? You hold the office of the Prime Minister unelected, without a single vote, not even from your own MPs. You have no mandate from the people and the government is adrift. You have squandered the goodwill of the nation for what? You've increased corporation tax to 25%, taking us to the level of the highest tax take since World War II at 75% of GDP. You have completely failed in reducing illegal migration or delivering on the benefits of Brexit.
And of course, as every poll now published shows, such a dire situation sees the Tories on course for a devastating landslide loss, handing the country potentially for a generation to a socialist cabal led by slippery Starmer.
We cannot simply disregard the democratic choice of the electorate, remove both the Prime Minister and the manifesto commitments they voted for, and then expect to return to the people in the hope that they will continue to unquestioningly support us. They have agency and they will use it. Your actions have left some 200 or more of my MP colleagues to face an electoral tsunami and the loss of their livelihoods, because in your impatience to become Prime Minister, you put your personal ambition above the stability of the country and our economy.
Wow. But again, she's right. I campaigned against Sunak becoming Prime Minister during his leadership campaign against Liz Truss this time last summer for a reason. And I now fear there was good reason for that decision. Sunak had every opportunity but is running out of chances to save this great country. But to respond now, my superstar panel, former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins, the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and the former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. So, Andrea Jenkins, you are a Conservative MP. You served as a minister under Boris Johnson. Like Nadine, you were a Boris loyalist.
Yes.
But I understand you have loyalty to your party. That said, Andrea, isn't it time for us to have some honest talk?
I mean, I've been honest all the way along, as you know, Dan. I mean, I've made no secret the fact I'm not a big fan of the Prime Minister. And I just feel it's a very sad place that we're in at the moment. We've wasted this great opportunity of the amazing 2019
So Nadine
election.
was right?
Well, we've wasted the opportunity. Look what's happened. I mean,
So did you agree with what she said in her resignation letter?
I agree with parts of it. I'm sure many Conservatives do. And I really hope that the Prime Minister listens to our wing of the party, because we make up, the centre-right of the party make up the majority of the members as well. We want to see true Conservative policies, Dan. We want to take control of immigration. We want to be strong on law and order. We don't want to see these woke policies and sex education and the stuff what's going on in the NHS regarding gender. This should not happen under a Conservative government. And I think, the Prime Minister must take the helm now, show his mettle, because if we don't start being Conservative again, we've got a really tough battle in the next 12 months.
Nadine said Rishi will be judged harshly historically. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, we're going on the current record. I guess it's very hard to say what we're achieving at the moment. I mean, we look back at Boris. I mean, look at the major fight we had for Brexit in Parliament and how he got it through, which was amazing because everybody was trying to stop Brexit. The majority of cross-party was trying to stop it, and he did amazing. And look at the vaccine rollout. Look at Boris has got a legacy. Look at how he was leading the way supporting Ukraine. So I think Boris has got a legacy. So I think the Prime Minister needs to take a deep, hard look and think, how do we return to Conservative values and ensure that we've got a really strong manifesto into the next election.
I mean, Belinda Lucy, it's really interesting. There's lots that Boris Johnson did that I don't agree with. His approach to net zero, his approach to COVID and the vaccine rollout. But the big difference is he was elected on a manifesto and he was delivering on that manifesto. And there's so many things that Sunak is just chipping away at. Like, why is he all of a sudden emboldening the BBC? Why has he decided not to sell Channel 4? Like, what is Sunak actually doing here?
Well, I'm not quite sure.
Is he a patsy for the establishment?
Well, what is the Conservative Party for anymore? What's its purpose? What does it mean to be Conservative now in this day and age when it is just a mere shell of what it was? It's almost like the party has been gutted of Conservatives and no one knows quite what it is now. It seems to be, apart from the strong minority of Conservative
there are some honourable
minority of honourable exceptions. Because if you were the majority, then I don't think we would see this zombie parliament. Nadine was quite right. We've had aggressive mass immigration.
Isn't the fact, though, there are actually a lot of good people in the Conservative Party, but Sunak has purged them of positions of power. I mean, look at just on this channel over the past few minutes. So you've got Andrea, you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg, you've got Nadine. They were purged from leadership.
That's why I think it's really important that Nadine writes this book and the public get to see the other side of the story.
The political assassination of Boris Johnson.
Whether you like her or not, what went on in Parliament smacked of treachery and knavery on a Shakespearean level. And people want transparency and they want to know the truth, because how do they know?
Rishi was plotting, Andrea. He was plotting not just for months. He was plotting against Boris Johnson for years. Now, that is a disgrace. He was the Chancellor. He was meant to be his most loyal ally.
Completely, Dan. I mean,
this was Gordon Brown level stuff.
I mean, I've said numerous times on your show as well, Dan, that Boris plucked Rishi out of obscurity in a junior ministerial role and gave him the second biggest job in government, but there was no loyalty there. But I just have to say, regarding the MPs in the party, the issue is really, it actually goes deeper than Rishi Sunak. It actually is, we've got far more One Nation MPs who make up the parliamentary party.
Who should just go and join the Lib Dems, right?
I've publicly said that before. So we've got far more One Nation MPs than we have the Thatcherite
So you just
MPs.
say to Tobias Elwood, to Caroline Oakes, you say to them, what, go and join the Lib Dems?
I've just said we've got plenty who I personally think...
Get out and let us take our party back. Benjamin Butterworth, this is just like your dream scenario, isn't it? You're sitting back, you're rubbing your hands with glee as the Tory party engage in a civil war not seen since the defenestration of Margaret Thatcher.
I mean, it was quite hilarious that she said, why is it that 5 Tory Prime Ministers have been through since 2010 but not lost by a general election? Well, the answer is Boris Johnson for at least 3 of those, the 2 before him and himself. He's the person that kept ousting Tory leaders without any democratic mandate. And the idea that she talks about a democratic deficit when she has not
didn't oust
turned
David
up...
Cameron, did he?
Yes, but through the Brexit vote, that's what forced him out. And Boris
David Cameron chose to have the vote, and he lost the vote.
I mean, you know, Nadine Dorries lecturing about democratic deficits is like Lizzo giving you diet tips. This is a woman. This is a woman who has not turned up to Parliament for more than a year. She's taken more than £90,000. She's taken more than £90,000 of public money and not voted once for her constituents. As far as I'm concerned, if that were a universal credit claimant, they'd be before the courts for breaking the grounds on which they got paid. She should be before a court giving that 90k back because she's not doing her job and she's not representing constituents.
What is it about Nadine Dorries that winds the left up so much?
The hypocrisy.
Is it the fact that she's a working-class success story and you just can't stand the fact that it was the Conservative Party that turned her into a success, that got her out of that Liverpool council estate to be one of our best-selling authors and to be one of our most effective politicians? Or is it just sexism? What is it that the left hates so much about Nadine Dorries?
As a working-class hero, I wouldn't be one to criticise a fellow. You know, I was born into a council estate, right? But so was Angela Rayner, a person who you attack constantly on here. So it's the hypocrisy that is a problem. I don't believe
she was the one that called all Tories scum, actually, Benjamin.
I don't believe that anybody would want someone like Nadine Dorries on their team because she's not a team player.
OK, well, let's give the final word to Andrea because Nadine was on your team. Did you find her an effective person to work alongside? Are you close? Are you tight? Are you buddies?
I like Nadine. I think she's great, and I thought she was a great culture secretary, and I loved how she was taken on the BBC.
Yeah.
And I
well, she didn't do very well, did she?
Well, no, she didn't do very well because Rishi Sunak came in and threw out all of her plans, including, by the way, selling Channel 4, which is a disgrace. And I have to wonder what sort of secret stitch-ups were done behind the scenes for Sunak to get power and all of a sudden say, oh, I'm not going to touch the BBC, I'm not going to touch Channel 4. Was it perhaps because he was thanking them for their craven coverage of Partygate that forced Boris from office? I think so. Dame Andrea Jenkins, Benjamin Butterworth, Belinda Lucy. Great to have you back, Belinda. We have missed you. And my superstar panel are with me all night. But still to come, as vile human traffickers are exposed boasting and recruiting on TikTok, how can we stop the Chinese-owned app playing into the hands of the people smugglers? Brexit broker Nigel Farage live this bank holiday Monday. But next in the clash, as the trio are pictured arriving together at a Balmoral church service, is it right for William and Kate to welcome Prince Andrew back into the fold? Royal commentator Lady Victoria Harvey, she's very close to Andrew, goes up against writer and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, member of the Sussex squad, so it's going to be fiery. Dan at gbnews.com if you want to weigh in. Vote in our Twitter poll at GBNews. Back soon.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Nigel Farage and Neil Oliver have their say on the migrant shambles, and Sadiq Khan shortly. But first, the clash. And ahead of the first anniversary of the late Queen Elizabeth's passing, the royal family have made a defiant demonstration of unity during their annual summer holiday in Balmoral. Yesterday, Prince Andrew was spotted riding shotgun alongside the Prince and Princess of Wales as they arrived at church. This marks a stark change from a similar service at Easter, where the trio did not appear to speak to each other. And royal sources have told The Telegraph safe to say it's a holiday where the entire family has been invited, the entire family are participating, and the entire family are included. Anyone looking for a family divided angle will be sorely disappointed. Well, apart from Harry and Meghan, of course. But what do you think? Is it right for William and Kate to welcome Prince Andrew back into the royal fold? It's a controversial question. Dan at gbnews.com is my email address. You can vote in our poll at gbnews on Twitter. But to debate this now, I'm joined by royal commentator, close friend of Prince Andrew, Lady Victoria Harvey, and the writer, broadcaster, and I call her a member of the Sussex squad, Nina Mishkov. Now, Lady V, you know we've had lots of debates about Prince Andrew. But I have to say, the more I look into the case, the more I think he was the victim of a media stitch-up, really.
Well,
and so is this a good sign that William and Kate, because it's a big deal, that William and Kate wanted to be seen with him like that in public? As someone who has supported him, do you think this marks the start of him returning into the royal fold?
Yeah, I do think this is a very good sign, especially after, you know, the recent things at Royal Lodge, and this is definitely
because they wanted to take his house away.
Yeah, this is
and he's won that
something
battle.
very positive. But, you know, remember when the Queen died, he was also in the car with Prince William back then. I think at the end of the day, it's all family. It was something that was alleged. It was never proven. It was never happened, basically. And
but William did want him to lose his royal duties, though. So this is why it feels significant to me.
yeah, no, it is. It's definitely like a huge deal because, you know, they know that the world is watching. You know, the world is watching their every move and every little thing that they do. It's magnified, and the fact.
Oh yeah,
that
this was a sign. This was a statement
and
from
the
William.
Queen was very good at doing that. You know, the Queen.
Well, she had him walk her into that service.
That was a huge thing, and I think at the end of the day, people should have respected the Queen and what she...
Nina Mishkov, didn't we rush to judge Prince Andrew? Because the reason that he settled that case was because he didn't want to overshadow the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
You don't know that. You don't know that. That's supposition on your part.
I know that.
That's supposition on your part. And paying £12 million
How do you know it's
is that is what's been the... OK, that's the number. Well, OK, it's not 2 and 6, is it? He may be welcomed back into the royal family, but into the family, not the royal fold. The public will not accept it. You absolutely... You say that he's been stitched up by the media. Out of his own mouth, he stitched himself up.
That interview was a big mistake, Lady.
Yeah, that was Emily Maitlis.
But you admit...
Emily Maitlis stitched him up.
No,
yes, she did.
She did.
Yes, she did.
Listen, 1 second. She went into that interview with an idea of I'm making him look guilty. She's a barrister. The way it was, the lighting, I can make anyone look guilty or not guilty.
The public realised what an idiot he'd been because of the lighting. Victoria, come on.
It was editing. It was everything that they did.
It was there. Look, you cannot possibly defend Prince Andrew in that interview.
I know the truth, so I'm going to.
We all saw that. He was...
but he didn't perform... Look, the interview was a disaster.
It was a
the interview was a disaster.
Because of him, not because of lighting, because of him. Because it's a complete catastrophe. And I don't know why you defend a man...
Because I know they're liars.
Because everybody I've ever read who's actually had to work with him, when he was trade envoy...
Lady V, respond to this. Lady V.
Entitled,
Nina.
Rude...
Nina, we've got to have two sides. Don't talk over each other. Don't talk over each other. Let me get in here. Lady V, I want to ask not about... Because we have litigated time and again what happened with Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you about is Nina talking about his personality, because you know Andrew well. What about these rumours, Lady V, that he's very rude to people, that he can be boorish, that he can treat staff badly? Have you ever seen or experienced that?
I think it's to do with the military. A lot of people have said, yes, he is very abrupt, but he is very factual, to the point.
Did he always treat you well?
Yes, of course.
That's,
you know, I never
with great
saw,
respect,
anything
a friend, a beautiful girl, he's going to treat very differently from staff.
No, but people can only speak as they find, Nina. Do you know him, Nina?
No,
have you met him? OK, but Lady Victoria does.
I'm saying that your point of view is very valid from a beautiful female point of view, but it has nothing to do with him as a trade envoy. When he cocked up various things, he was...
were you there?
No, but there are people you respect.
But there are lots of stories about this lady.
The High Commissioner of Trade for Bahrain, they called him HBH, His Buffoon Highness, because he was absolutely idiot. They said they tried to analyse and say it came from a sort of
what did he do,
inferiority. He would shout at people. He would go against the brief. He would demand things when he was travelling around.
Well, Lady Victoria, can you respond? Can you talk about your personal experience with him, because I think that's important. Is he polite? Is he a gentleman? Is he a good family man? Because obviously his daughters adore him.
I've always thought he was polite and, you know, very well-mannered. Even my mother said that one time, because she sat at a lunch and she, you know, she doesn't follow any of this stuff, but she thought he was extremely polite, very gentlemanly. I haven't experienced what you were saying.
With respect, sitting next to somebody at a lunch, a social, pleasant engagement.
But Lady Victoria knows him better.
Very different from working for him. The demands he made, the boorishness of his, you know, throwing things on the floor, making his security.
I think he actually has some kind of, not an ADD, but there's something that the way
you mean ADHD.
When he comes across. It's very matter-of-fact, and some people say he suddenly gets very angry.
And Lady V, could that be...
And I think it's actually something that
because of the experience fighting in the Falklands War, for example? Because a lot of soldiers who do come back from the battlefield have a degree of PTSD. And he was a war hero.
With respect, we're talking decades ago, and this is not the same. This is not the same man who throws tantrums because his teddy bears and his cuddly toys are not arranged on his bed in the correct place.
Lady Victoria Harvey, brilliant debate. Now look, both sides of the story here on GB News, and you'll remember that Virginia Giuffre accused Prince Andrew of sexually assaulting her when she was a teenager. Her lawsuit stated 20 years ago Prince Andrew's wealth, power, position and connections enabled him to abuse a frightened, vulnerable child with no one there to protect her. It is long past the time for him to be held to account. Now, who do you agree with on this? Is it right for William and Kate to welcome Prince Andrew back into the royal fold? Kate on Twitter says it was a family event, not a public state event. He has every right to go to a private family event. Mark writes they may choose to reconnect with Andrew in private, which is their own business, but they certainly should not welcome him back into the royal fold. And from Brittany, this is a tough one, as Andrew is family. He is not a friend or associate of the royals. It is difficult to distance yourself from actual family members, especially at formal events such as this. And your verdict is now in. A split decision. 42% say William and Kate were right to bring Prince Andrew back. 58% of you agreeing with Nina Mishkov, saying that they were wrong to do so. Now, Nigel Farage and Neil Oliver both still to come this hour. First, though, the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the next few days, the changeable theme will continue. Most of us seeing some further rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. So as we end Monday, we've got this ridge of high pressure across the UK. This generally gave us a settled day today, but fronts are waiting up across the northwest, and as we go through the course of the night, we'll see one of these move into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So some showers here. For a lot of England and Wales, though, it should be largely dry, but fairly cloudy. So that will help keep most towns and cities firmly in double figures as we start Tuesday morning. So into Tuesday, we'll track this band of showery rain further southeastwards across England and Wales. Behind it, further showers moving in across parts of western Scotland. Quite blustery here too as we go through the course of the day. Probably the driest conditions down towards the southeast, but even here later on, we will see a few showers. So I think come the afternoon, possibly the best of the sunshine over towards northern England. In the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm, most of us seeing similar temperatures to what we have seen today. Into Wednesday, I'm hopeful for a little bit more sunshine across the board, but still the risk of some showers, especially across eastern parts of Scotland, down into parts of England too. But in the sunshine, it should feel fairly pleasant, but still that keen wind up across the north. Into Thursday, a band of rain moving across many southern parts of the UK, and really that's going to continue the changeable theme as we go through the course of the week.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Coming up, there's now under 3 hours to go until Sadiq Khan's despised ULEZ scheme is expanded. Welsh Labour, meanwhile, plan to introduce a blanket 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in built-up areas. So why is Slippery Starmer's party waging war on motorists? Neil Oliver investigating this soon. But first, as people smugglers are exposed for advertising their wicked business in TikTok, even using the platform to say they control our borders, how can we crack down on the human traffickers and their sick social media campaigns? The one and only Nigel Farage, live straight after this.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant read my superstar panel that are already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
you should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
What the Farage time now, and the shocking tactics being used by people smuggling gangs to entice illegal migrants into Britain via the increasingly sinister Chinese social media app TikTok have been uncovered. With the latest live stream seeing traffickers declare we are the UK, French and Turkish governments as they broadcast live from a migrant camp in northern France. They are also posting degrading and sinister footage of young, drunk, scantily clad British girls as social media bait aimed at young North African men. That is according to a GB News investigation. So, Nigel, I appreciate the government is to blame here, but TikTok, this Chinese social media app, surely becoming part of the problem.
Very much so, Dan. I mean, it's been used openly. The Albanians were using it every day. You know, advertisements, come to London, showing the route, showing people in London, showing them with £10,000-20,000 in cash in their hands, basically saying, come to Britain, join the criminal drugs gangs, make loads of money. But now, what we've seen today is just open mockery. You know, we are the government. Well, the irony is, of course, they're more powerful than the government when it comes to who can cross the English Channel or not. But your question is a really vexing and difficult one. The younger generation, TikTok now dominates their social media lives by, I mean, way above all the other platforms. Short of banning it, there's nothing we can do because, you see, even if you close these accounts down, and you can close down 100 accounts every day, but new ones simply spring up. I have to say, I do think some of the ways in which TikTok's been used, especially around the gender debate, have had a very strong political motive. One or two states in America talking about banning it, but frankly, it isn't going to happen. They are too big, they are too powerful, and the big vested interests in Britain and America are too close to communist China for business. So I'm afraid, it's a bit pessimistic, but I'm afraid we're simply going to have to live with this.
No, indeed we are, but I'm not going anywhere near TikTok. I have a big issue with it. But look, Nigel, the Home Office's former asylum boss, I couldn't believe this, Emma Haddad, seems to have shown her true colours after joining the pro-migrant charity Amnesty International, which has recently slammed the government's immigration policies as, quote, inhumane, racist and divisive. So is this proof that the civil service, Nigel, actually has no intentions of stopping the boats and will do whatever it takes to frustrate Suella Braverman?
Well, I've said this before and got in terrible trouble with certain newspapers, but I'll say it again. It proves there is a fifth column, literally a fifth column deep at the heart of the British establishment that will do whatever it can to frustrate the will of a government, albeit not a very good one, but a government that was elected with an 80-seat majority.
So is this the deep state, Nigel? Is this the British deep state?
It's the equivalent, yes, absolutely. But it is a fifth column. It's working against our democracy, against our national interest. And I'm sorry to say, that, she is a public example of this. All the reforms that Gladstone put in place all those years ago to depoliticise the civil service, to get rid of corruption in the civil service, and actually to give us an amazing civil service for much of that time, all of that since Tony Blair has gone, as they become increasingly politicised. And frankly, the only way forward is mass sackings and start again.
Both sides of the story, of course, here on GB News, Nigel, as you know. So Ms Haddad has said, as with any civil servant, my job was to serve the government of the day. All civil servants must abide by the Civil Service Code and uphold the civil service's core values of integrity, honesty, objectivity and impartiality. But Nigel, moving on, the Mail on Sunday has exposed hushed-up Labour plans to hit motorists with a pay-per-mile system as failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan's war on motorists reaches egregious new heights. So a dedicated website called Project 2030 revealed a request for engineers to join Transport for London Now to lead the way in introducing new, more sophisticated type of road pricing. So, Nigel, it does feel like this is the future under a Labour government, isn't it?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Road pricing and with Chinese-style spy cameras measuring our speeds and everywhere we go. All of this already being used, this technology, to back up ludicrous outside of school hour 20-mile-an-hour limits in London, in big cities, and now, of course, coming to the whole of Wales. But here's the problem, Dan. This isn't some dastardly plan by Labour. All of this was put in train by Conservatives. ULEZ, 0 hour, starting in under 3 hours. Boris Johnson was the one who first proposed these ideas. Grant Shapps has been rubber stamping much of this stuff. And the Tories have been as taken with the Green agenda as the Labour Party. Now, we're now hearing a change of tone from the Conservatives, but do they really mean it? And is it perhaps too late? But yes, you're right. Road pricing is exactly where Labour want to take us. And it's, policy, our transport policy is designed by people who live in central London, don't own cars, and think we should all have a bicycling future, a Beijing future, all on bicycles and all constantly surveilled. They're out of touch with the country. And if the Conservatives were genuinely to get this right on behalf of nearly 37 million people who drive in Britain, it would be a huge, huge thing for them. But we have to believe them. Not that it's just being said for the mayoral election and the next general election. We have to believe there's been a fundamental change.
Well, we do. And of course, speaking of cyclists, Jeremy Vine thinks that actually cars should now be pulling over, Nigel, to allow cyclists to overtake. So that's where we're going. By the way, Sadiq Khan has said on this, this is nonsense. Let me be crystal clear. A pay-per-mile scheme is not on the table and not on the agenda. Nigel, as you say, just 2 hours and 15 minutes now until ULEZ is introduced. You have a very special programme, a very special Farage at Large tomorrow night at 7 p.m. What can you tell us about it?
I've lived for 60 years in what I grew up, it was Kent, but we got absorbed by Greater London. We are the furthest point from central London. The ULEZ cameras are literally going in just down the road, right next to my local pub. I have to say the one that was put up isn't there anymore, not that I can condone that sort of behaviour. And we're going to do a live show tomorrow night from my area, where I'm from. We'll have a massive audience, and you'll see people that own horse boxes. You'll see pensioners. You'll see ordinary folk. I mean, just one example. One guy said, this is my car. It's a great car. It's not compliant. Khan's offering me £2,000 scrappage. It's £20,000 to buy the equivalent of what I've got. And for the people with horse boxes, even farmers with tractors are going to find themselves hurt by this. Where I live is not a wealthy area. It's a rural area. It's not a wealthy area. We may be an extreme example. But what about all those people living in Kent and Surrey and Sussex and Essex and Hertfordshire and elsewhere? It's going to hurt them too. And I am appalled that this government has not either put in place legislation or used Article 143 of the Local Government Act. This could have been stopped. This could have been stopped. And they chose not to do it. So I think we're going to have a big crowd tomorrow. And in my 60 years of living in these villages, I've never seen such anger.
Goodness me, in the hood, in the Farage hood tomorrow. Cannot wait. 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Nigel, thank you so much. Have a great show. But coming up in the media buzz, with do-gooder charities kicking up a fuss, should the suggestion of fitting illegal migrants with electronic tags really provoke such controversy? My superstar panel tackle this. Plus, we'll have the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages too. But next, with just over 2 hours until Sadiq Khan's detested ULEZ scheme expands to the outskirts of London, and the Welsh Government whacking a default 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on built-up roads, is Labour's war on motorists only going to get worse? Neil Oliver investigates next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier with major royal exclusives soon. But first, it's time for historian and freedom fighter Neil Oliver. And the countdown to failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan's ruinous low-emission zone expansion is almost over, with the wildly unpopular scheme coming into force in just over 2 hours' time, despite a litany of legal challenges and public protests. And in yet another example of Labour's warped war on motorists, the Welsh Labour government is preparing to introduce a blanket 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on all built-up roads from next week. Welsh Tory leader Andrew R.T. Davies has vowed to fight back.
And if we were to form the government after the next Senate election in 2026, we would look to revoke the mandatory 20 mph speed limit across the whole of Wales.
But Neil, when you factor in what's going on with ULEZ in just 2 hours' time and what's going on in Wales, plus this secret plan for a pay-per-mile scheme, it does feel like the Labour Party, which, let's be honest, this time next year will probably be in government, is launching an all-out war on cars and motorists.
Yes, of course they are. I think it's completely disingenuous, any protest about any of it from Conservatives. And I think they're just, privately, that there is in favour of all the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, net zero nonsense that's being pushed by everybody else. I think they're just standing by and letting Labour get on with it, and it provides them a little bit of cover. But I think they're all in favour. Two cheeks, same bottom, and all of that. Again, I always find myself falling back on this idea of that the issue is not the issue, and that it's never about what they say it's about. In the case of the ULEZ scheme, it's supposed to be about air pollution, clean air. I don't believe that for a minute. If it's about saving children's lungs, why is it okay if you spend £12.50, you can pump out as much pollution as you want? It's about money. It's about control over people's lives. It's about bringing in more and more of the surveillance by stealth. It's more cameras. It's just an excuse to bring in the cameras, and it's another egregious intrusion into people's lives. The thing that's happening in London is, it's beyond belief. Dick Turpin was hanged for highway robbery, and all that Cannes is about is highway robbery. To be honest with you, the activity of the Blade Runners, the disabling of the cameras. I am not in any way surprised by that. Effectively, what has been going on in terms of the Blade Runners and the protests and the legal actions, it's a de facto referendum on Cannes policy, and it clearly is a resounding because
Neil, isn't the worry, Neil, we're just giving up on democracy because it doesn't seem to make a difference. But how do we deal with this? I mean, does there need to be a political revolution of some form in this country?
Political revolution, I don't see the solution coming from the world of politics, because the world of politics, I would say, is hopelessly compromised, hopelessly toxic, hopelessly poisonous. I fail really to comprehend why people put up with it. We should be dismissing these people by our actions, to be quite honest with you. If people drove into London in whatever vehicle they wanted and then subsequently received fines, if everyone put those fines in the bin, because legislation comes forward does not make it lawful.
Yes.
And it's the responsibility of people in the face of egregious wrong by impertinent servants. And, Cannes is a public servant. It's the obligation, responsibility and the right of people to rebel against it. And if that is all that people are left with as an alternative, then that is how they should act.
OK, both sides of the story, of course, here on GB News, Neil. So a Welsh Government spokesman said decreasing speeds not only reduces collisions and saves lives, but improves the quality of life, making room on our streets for safer active travel whilst helping reduce our environmental impact. On ULEZ, a spokesperson for the Mayor of London said the ULEZ analysis from the engineering department at Imperial only paints a partial picture, not accounting for the full lifetime impact of the scheme and only focusing on its immediate impact around its launch. Neil Oliver, thank you so much. And of course, Neil, back 6 p.m. Saturday night here on GB News.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Neil. But coming up, as Spanish Football Federation chief Luis Rubiales faces international condemnation and a High Court investigation after kissing the women's team captain, is he guilty of sexual abuse or has it been blown out of proportion? Social commentator Lilani Dowding and author Anna May Mangan thrash this one out very soon. But next, as left-wing charities call out plans for illegal migrants to be fitted with electronic ankle tags, this is actually an essential precaution to keep the British public safe. My superstar panel have plenty to say on this, and we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. And Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, don't go anywhere.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the next few days, the changeable theme will continue, most of us seeing some further rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. So as we end Monday, we've got this ridge of high pressure across the UK. This generally gave us a settled day today, but fronts are waiting up across the northwest, and as we go through the course of the night, we'll see one of these move into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So some showers here. For a lot of England and Wales, though, it should be largely dry, but fairly cloudy. So that will help keep most towns and cities firmly in double figures as we start Tuesday morning. So into Tuesday, we'll track this band of showery rain further southeastwards across England and Wales. Behind it, further showers moving in across parts of western Scotland. Quite blustery here too as we go through the course of the day. Probably the driest conditions down towards the southeast, but even here later on, we will see a few showers. So I think come the afternoon, possibly the best of the sunshine over towards northern England. In the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm, most of us seeing similar temperatures to what we have seen today. Into Wednesday, I'm hopeful for a little bit more sunshine across the board, but still the risk of some showers, especially across eastern parts of Scotland down into parts of England too. But in the sunshine, it should feel fairly pleasant, but still that keen wind up across the north. Into Thursday, a band of rain moving across many southern parts of the UK, and really that's going to continue the changeable theme as we go through the course of the week.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it's tag time. Is the government finally putting our safety over the rights of illegals as Superwoman Suella refuses to rule out attaching electronic monitors to migrants?
We're considering a range of options, all options, to ensure that we can exert some control over those people who are arriving illegally.
But as left-wing charities queue up to cry their objections, will the government follow through? That's the big debate with my superstar panel next. And tonight, I'm joined by Dame Andrea Jenkins, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. And it's the moment that continues to split international opinion. The president of the Spanish Football Federation planting an apparently unwelcome kiss onto his World Cup winning captain. But after he is tonight placed under a preliminary investigation for sexual assault, has the incident been blown out of proportion? Leilani Dowding tackles Anna May Mangan on that shortly. Plus, there's big developments in Montecito with Meghan Markle poised to rake in $1 million per post on Instagram while her mother, Doria Ragland, is seen keeping up with the Kardashians. Later this hour, my royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, offer their expert analysis on what it all means for brand Sussex. And back at home, as 77 woke NHS trusts sign up to the Rainbow Badge scheme, which bans words like mother and woman, are this country's doctors and nurses being forced to erase gender by the extreme gender lobby? We'll thrash that out in the Media Buzz. And remember when the British Bashing Corporation unintentionally delivered this moment of TV gold?
Well, Guy Cuny is the editor of the technology website News Wireless. Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
16 years on, that unsuspecting interviewee is suing the British Bashing Corporation. He'll explain why in just a moment. There'll also be a new Greatest Britain and Union jackass revealed, and the first front pages too, right after the news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. This news is breaking, just coming into us. The Spanish Football Federation has called for its president, Luis Rubiales, to resign. In a statement, it said his unacceptable behaviour has seriously damaged the image of Spanish football. Rubiales has faced mounting pressure for kissing Jenny Hermoso on the lips at the Women's World Cup final. He has always claimed it was consensual, which she has strongly denied. He's since been banned by FIFA for 90 days. Meanwhile, the country's highest criminal court has opened a preliminary investigation into his behaviour. It's trying to establish if Rubiales should face criminal charges of sexual assault over the incident. More on this as soon as we get it here on GB News. Now, holidaymakers are facing days of travel disruption after an air traffic control failure led to more than 500 flights to and from the UK being cancelled. A network-wide technical fault has left hundreds of thousands of airline passengers stranded or delayed. National Air Traffic Services has promised a thorough investigation, but is warning the knock-on effect will last further into the week, with crews unable to fly and planes out of position. Police do have the resources they need to meet a government pledge to crack down on crime. And that's according to the Home Secretary, who says police have disregarded theft and burglaries for too long, despite record numbers of officers now being available across the UK. Labour has criticised it as a staggering admission of 13 years of Tory failure. Suella Braverman says the force must follow all lines of inquiry.
Police have responded positively to my challenge, my request, in committing nationwide to indeed following every reasonable line of inquiry. So that now means that in the event of a car theft, phone theft, robbery, a burglary, if there's CCTV footage of an incident, if there's dashcam footage, if there's smartphone footage, GPS tracking evidence, a victim can produce evidence of an online resale of a stolen item, the police must follow up on those leads.
Donald Trump's criminal trial on charges of attempting to overturn his 2020 presidential election defeat will begin on the 4th of March next year. Mr. Trump's trial in Washington, D.C. will start one day before Super Tuesday. That's when many states nominate their Republican or Democratic presidential candidate. He is the clear favourite to win the Republican nomination. The former president faces a further 3 criminal cases, though. He's due to be arraigned in Georgia next Wednesday on charges of election interference in that state. Staying in the US, 2 people have been killed after a helicopter crashed into a residential building in Florida. A warning, we are about to show you some footage of the crash, which viewers may find distressing. This video posted online shows the fire rescue helicopter in flames before it broke apart in midair and then spiraled to the ground. It's understood 1 crew member and a second person on the ground were killed. 4 people have also been injured. Well, this is GB News across the UK. That is it from me for the moment. More in an hour's time. But now it's back to Dan.
Tomorrow's news tonight. Now in our Media Buzz, let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages hot off the press. Air traffic commuter computer chaos. Sorry, that's the headline in the Metro tonight. The paper says the UK's air traffic system suffered a major bank holiday meltdown with thousands of passengers left stranded. Some mummers do have 'em. That's the headline leading the Daily Star tonight, and that's because the mum of Spain's controversial football boss, Luis Rubiales, who we just heard the latest from there with Aaron, has locked herself in a church and gone on hunger strike because of the inhuman hunt against her son. Now, we will be talking about the under fire football boss very shortly. Big debate coming. But first, my superstar panel back with me, former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins, the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and the former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Now, under plans being considered by Suella Braverman, the illegal migrants invading our shores could soon be fitted with electronic GPS tags to stop them disappearing from the system. With detention sentence spaces stretched to their limit, Superwoman Suella's told Home Office officials to come up with alternatives. And much to the British bashing corporation's horror, she conceded tags are not off the table. Watch.
Is it true, as being reported in some of the papers this morning, that you're considering tagging migrants?
Well, we've just passed our landmark legislation in the form of the Illegal Migration Act that will empower us to detain and remove illegal migrants more swiftly. But we're considering a range of options, all options, to ensure that we can exert some control over those people who are arriving illegally so that we can thereafter remove them.
But of course, woke lefties immediately rushed to criticise the plans, with Enver Solomon from the Refugee Council saying this is treating people as mere objects rather than vulnerable men, women and children in search of safety. But Belinda, is the government actually recognising the potential threat illegal immigrants pose? And shouldn't they be electronically tagged? Why not?
Why hasn't this happened from day one? This is such a reflection of how weak the Conservative government have been about this. If they have decided they're going to expose the British public to tens of thousands of undocumented, mostly men, over, I think it's 87% are men, and the British people have to suffer the consequences, the very least they should do is put ankle tags on them, not because they're all criminals and no one is ever suggesting that everyone who comes over here means harm, but some do. And there are instances. There was just one a few weeks ago in Skegness where a woman was raped by one of these men that have come from the boats within 40 days of him being here. He was in one of those hotels. This doesn't happen, massively often, but it does happen. And every time it happens, it's one too many. The British government have got to get serious about this. But I tell you something, the focus should not be on more taxpayers' money funding all of this. They should be stopping the boats coming in the first place and safely intercepting them and taking them back to France, ruffling a few French feathers.
Couldn't agree more.
Dan, but that's what they should be doing, not all these fads.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. But we are where we are for the moment. Benjamin Butterworth, do you have any moral issues with electronically tagging illegal immigrants?
I mean, the moral issue I have is with Suella Braverman. She is not considering this. What she's considering is yet more desperate spin to avoid the fact that she hasn't stopped a single boat. I mean, the second-hand cringe that you call her Superwoman Suella. I mean, this woman can't even work out who she's sending an email to. It's more like Slow Sue, who can't work out how to do her job.
Andrea, come in there.
Oh, no, I mean, she's got the civil service against her.
The civil service, I call them.
Exactly. I mean, I think, why not tag people? The detention centres full, but and then the government needs to account for people. But it's such a wider issue than just tagging. I mean, I think that it's just putting a sticking plaster over things, and we really need to get a grip of this. I mean, I would like to see us stop being a soft touch, stop putting people in hotels who get here illegally, and I start dragging the boats back to France.
And also the Albanian gangs have posted TikToks on how to remove the tags with kitchen scissors.
Well, look, I mean, look, you might be gullible to everything that this person says, but I don't think your viewers are. The fact is that she hasn't stopped the boat. She hasn't cut crime. No, I haven't spoken to her. But I think, you know what, people can see the reality of what's going on, and she keeps coming up with ways to try and distract
She's a great woman, and look, if she were Prime Minister...
having problems, is it?
It's the whole of Europe.
But let's just be clear here. Hang on.
Italy as well.
Hang on. I read the story in the Times today, in the Telegraph. These tags don't exist, and they won't exist. And if they did attempt to get them, they'd cost an absolute fortune. So this
Just back to my original question, though. Do you have a moral issue with illegal immigrants being electronic
I'm not going to go for that trap, because the whole point of this argument is to then use elephants in the room and say that, oh, these lefties, they're terrified about these rapists not having tags or whatever it is that they'd frame it as, right?
No, the point is we don't know who they are, Benjamin.
Nonsense. She hasn't stopped the boats. Why do you still support her?
Well, I've said numerous times that if Superwoman Suella were Prime Minister, do you know what? We would be out of the ECHR already. Already. She ran on that mandate to be Conservative leader.
Well, there's another failure.
Now, look, does the name Guy Gomer mean anything to you? Because it should. In 2006, Guy turned up to interview for a computing job at the British Bashing Corporation, but through an extraordinary case of mistaken identity, he ended up being quizzed live on the news channel. I have to say, it's probably my favourite ever viral video, so can we just have a reminder, please?
Well, Guy Cuny is the editor of the technology website News Wireless. Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Were you surprised by this verdict today?
I'm very surprised to see this verdict to come on me, because I was not expecting that. When I came, they told me something else, and I'm coming. You got an interview there, so it's a big surprise anyway.
A big surprise.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
It never gets old. Now, 17 years on, believe it or not, from that hilarious moment, Guy has revealed that he's considering suing the Beeb for cashing in on his big moment. Watch.
They reached out to you at all in any way? Have you tried to contact them since?
I contacted them. They didn't answer me. Did they pay me for that interview? No. Until today, they're waiting for me to take them to the court.
So are you still going to the court against BBC?
I'm gonna go.
Because of the money they've made from it and...
Because the money they made on it, and they didn't give me any single penny. When I see they're paying so many people with million there, that clip, it made them richer.
Sue them, Guy. Come on, he should sue, shouldn't he? The BBC are nothing without that man. Come on, sue them. Anyone with me?
No. I don't think he has a leg to stand on.
Yeah, good luck.
He wants to write a book called The Wrong Guy about his experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that'll be a page
just a joke?
No, he said that in the interview.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'll go for it then.
OK.
We'll make it millions.
Yeah,
like Delphi.
Lucy. Yeah, I might struggle to see how that turns into 500 pages. But anyway, coming up with nearly 80 NHS trusts joining the NHS Rainbow Badge scheme, rewarding them for banning gendered language and asking patients their pronouns. Does the NHS obsession with extreme gender ideology risk causing the erasure of women? My Superstar panel tackle that one shortly. But next, with Spanish prosecutors launching a sexual assault investigation into the country's Football Federation chief after he faced global criticism for kissing a female player on the lips. Was this a shocking case of sexual abuse or an overreaction to a gesture of affection? Social commentator Lilani Dowling up against feminist author Anna May Mangan on the scandal rocking the sporting world. We're back in 3.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Reed, my Superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Breaking tonight. The Spanish Football Federation regional presidents have called for its president, Luis Rubiales, to resign. In a statement, it said his, quote, unacceptable behaviour has seriously damaged the image of Spanish football. Spain's top criminal court has also launched a preliminary sex abuse investigation after he was internationally condemned for kissing female Spanish player Jenny Hermoso on the lips to celebrate her team lifting the Women's World Cup in Sydney last weekend. Hermoso has since insisted she did not enjoy the kiss and that it wasn't consensual. The scandal continues to rock Spain, with the country's far left-wing Deputy Prime Minister today slamming Rubiales' behaviour as, quote, showing the worst of Spanish society. But the debate is raging here too, with top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine arguing the moment has been blown completely out of proportion, writing, sure, it was misjudged, sure, it was inappropriate, but abuse? I really don't think so. So to debate this now, I'm joined by ex-top model and grid girl turned social commentator Leilani Dowding and the feminist author Anna May Mangan. So, Leilani, you believe this police investigation makes a bit of a mockery of genuine sex abuse?
Absolutely. I think it's been completely blown out of proportion. I think the reaction has been totally disproportionate. If that's sexual abuse, then I'm a victim of multiple sexual assaults. And as a victim of sexual assaults, I think it's absolutely abhorrent to diminish the real meaning of sexual assault when there's women, getting dragged into alleyways, having men put hands up their skirts, touch them inappropriately, fiddle around with them when they're drunk. This was somebody who gave this lady a quick peck on the lips for a millisecond in a big celebration because they just won the World Cup. Now, the day before or the day after, you saw the owner of a racehorse do exactly the same thing, grab the jockey by his cheeks and give him a big kiss to say, thank you, you've won this race for us. And it's complete and utter double standards.
Anna May Mangan, I mean, real passion from Leilani on this. We're having a look at the kiss now. When you see the video of it, Anna May, it did feel like a split-second moment, probably inappropriate, but it's something we see between male football players all the time.
Yeah, well, this guy is a super brat because he did it in the moment, but he also rubbed his groin in front of the royal box that contained a 16-year-old girl. So obviously he thinks with his groin and he made a mistake. And the word peck doesn't apply to holding someone's head and giving them a smacker on the lips. I mean, I think of Wimbledon. Imagine the Princess of Wales getting hold of Roger Federer and rubbing her lips against him. And would that be okay as well? It's not. And he wouldn't do it to a man. He would never have done it to a man. But worse still is I think they're taking advice from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's PR team because the situation is getting worse by the hour. He could have stopped this. He could have been graceful. He could have given a genuine apology. He could not have threatened to sue her and said she lied when it wasn't consensual. He jumped on her, basically, and there was so much to celebrate. It's so sad that he's taken the whole team down with him in what was a magnificent achievement for women's football. He has ruined it. He scored an own goal, and it's unforgivable what he did. But he could have retrieved it if he dealt with it better. But he's angered everybody now. He needs to read the room and get out.
Leilani Dowding, he described the reaction as false feminism.
Well, look, here's the thing. I think that's what's happened is actually him rubbing his crotch was far worse than the quick kiss on the lips, first of all, but that's not what he's being investigated for. So now they're using police time when there's legitimate sexual assaults going on. We have 1%, we've got all this airtime going on to rubbing this guy's name through the mud, when literally in this country, 1% of reported rapes get a conviction. So, we're using all this airtime to talk about a kiss. And another thing is this is a grown woman and, she's supposed to be this tough feminist hero. But now in this moment, she's too meek and mild and a wallflower to say, get off me. Because if you didn't want that kiss, you get your hand and you say, get off me. Like, that's what you do. You don't play along with it and suddenly have this, faux outrage later on down the line. Like, what is wrong with people being able to stand up for themselves if she truly didn't want that kiss?
Anna May?
She's she's just won the World Cup and she shouldn't be fighting off a randy coach on the sidelines when she's celebrating. And it's not every sexual assault, although I'm not sure I would categorise this as that, but it's certainly
you think that's a step too far? So you think calling this as because the police are looking into an investigation, so you actually agree that that's a step too far?
Why are they looking into it? All the evidence is there. The world's already seen it. We've seen what he did. But his mummy is on hunger strike for him now. This is a man who's obviously, since childhood, never been told no, and he thinks he can do what he wants.
You don't know
and
that.
He's taking down...
Anna May, you don't know that.
His mother's
no, you don't know that. Oh, so we're going to mock the mum, are we? We're going to mock the mum, are we now? Actually, perhaps the mum...
for locking herself... Yes, for defending her son's behaviour instead of saying...
Oh, what a terrible thing for mum to do. I mean, Leilani Dowding, perhaps the mum has seen her son's name being dragged through the mud and is truly devastated about it and wants to stand up for him.
And he did... he did nothing wrong.
You know what? I don't think... Look, they were all celebrating and you said you don't think he would do it to a man. You can go through archives of football where men do it to each other all the time. You've got,
all the time. Even after a goal. Even after a goal.
But you know
being
what?
scored.
The whole women's game is better. They're not throwing themselves on the floor and rolling around. They're not spitting. They're not fighting. So this was a chance to lift football,
all these
and it was missed.
grievances against men.
OK, final word, Leilani. You're saying the women's game is a woke fest.
It's a woke fest full of grievances against men. Megan Rapinoe moaning about pay not being equal to men when they don't get anywhere near the viewership or the sponsorship. Honestly, I didn't watch it. I'd rather go and weed the garden, which is what I did.
They don't get the respect, that's trouble.
Anna May Mangan, brilliant debate. Thank you both so much. Now, my royal masterminds, Lady C and Phil D, with some royal bombshells in a moment, straight after the weather.
That warm feeling inside. from boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the next few days, the changeable theme will continue. Most of us seeing some further rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. So as we end Monday, we've got this ridge of high pressure across the UK. This generally gave us a settled day today, but fronts are waiting up across the northwest, and as we go through the course of the night, we'll see one of these move into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So some showers here. For a lot of England and Wales, though, it should be largely dry, but fairly cloudy. So that will help keep most towns and cities firmly in double figures as we start Tuesday morning. So into Tuesday, we'll track this band of showery rain further southeastwards across England and Wales. Behind it, further showers moving in across parts of western Scotland. Quite blustery here too as we go through the course of the day. Probably the driest conditions down towards the southeast, but even here later on, we will see a few showers. So I think come the afternoon, possibly the best of the sunshine over towards northern England. In the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm, most of us seeing similar temperatures to what we have seen today. Into Wednesday, I'm hopeful for a little bit more sunshine across the board, but still the risk of some showers, especially across eastern parts of Scotland, down into parts of England too. But in the sunshine, it should feel fairly pleasant, but still that keen wind up across the north. Into Thursday, a band of rain moving across many southern parts of the UK, and really that's going to continue the changeable theme as we go through the course of the week.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Coming up, amidst reports that Meghan Markle's relaunch will begin with her returning to Instagram, where she could earn $1 million a pop. Why has her mother, Doria Ragland, suddenly been pictured with the Kardashians? My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, give their expert analysis very soon. But next in the media buzz, with 77 NHS trusts joining the Rainbow Badge scheme, rewarding them for banning gendered language and for asking patients their pronouns, is the NHS creeping ever closer to the erasure of women with its obsession with woke gender ideology? My superstar panel thrashed this one out, and we'll have more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you hot off the press. That's straight after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight. Now, in the Media Buzz, more front pages are in. Straight to the eye, which leads with the chaos at airports across the UK after a technical issue wiped out the UK's air traffic control system. The paper quotes a source who says that Downing Street hasn't ruled out a cyber attack being responsible, which would become a very major story. The Sun's take on the chaos that hit Britain today: get me out of air, after thousands of travellers were hit by delays on what is the busiest travel day of the year. So very sorry if you're stuck somewhere you don't want to be. Luckily, I was able to fly back from France early this morning before it all kicked off, so I felt really grateful, actually. My superstar panel return now: former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins, the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and the former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Now, in the latest chilling attack on women, 77 NHS trusts have signed up to the uber-woke Rainbow Badge scheme, which demands they stop using the terms mother and woman. Instead, medics are told to refer to maternity patients as clients, as well as asking their pronouns before giving treatment. While one of the trusts that signed up said they're committed to providing a welcoming, inclusive environment for all, a source close to the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, blasted the campaign, saying any scheme which does not recognise the role of women and biological sex in the NHS raises serious questions. The Health Secretary has been very clear that women should be called women. So, what's going on with all of this stuff, Belinda?
Well, it's a cult, isn't it? And they're not going to stop until they've completely erased women as a sex group, completely erased all our protections, all our rights. They will not stop. And a reflection of how fragile and ridiculous their ideology is because they need to force it onto people through threat of punishment, which is exactly what these trans activists, who have more in common with the Taliban than everyday ordinary Brits. They want women to submit, they want women to be silent, women not to speak, and they want men to be able to dictate to a woman what a woman is. You know, this ideology is so harmful, and it's now infiltrating our NHS. They're supposed to be looking after patients. They can be welcoming to all, but they can keep single-sex spaces. And I'm a mother, Dan, right? Many women, their womanhood, well, all women, their womanhood is inextricably linked to their female biology. I've given birth to 4 babies. 1 baby was stillborn at term. We go through all sorts of horrific things in hospitals as women because of our female biology, and they want to degrade and dehumanise us by calling us robotic names just to appease a few men who want validation. I don't get it. I think it's criminal, harmful, and I don't know why it's been allowed to infect our public sector.
Really passionate stuff, Belinda. Benjamin, you say, though, the NHS is not obsessed with gender ideology.
No, I mean, what this is, first of all, I mean, Belinda couldn't have undermined her argument any better than I can when she compares transgender people or those who care about them to murderers and terrorists.
I said trans activists.
Obviously,
will you stop?
Obviously an incredibly offensive thing.
Missaying what I said. I said trans activists.
Which are obviously
not
going to be,
trans people.
Obviously that's going to involve a lot
and
of trans people.
They don't reflect the trans community because they've hijacked it with their extremism.
You just compared trans people to men who behead women.
Trans activists, and I listed the similarities.
Well,
they want to silence us and they want us to know our place.
I think you've
I'm sorry, it's a
yourself
misogynistic movement, and you know it.
I mean, you just compared people like me to the Taliban, didn't you?
Well, are you a trans activist? You want women to give up their single-sex spaces and dictate to me what a woman is?
I'm happy to be called a trans activist, and you just compared me to the Taliban.
No, I'm saying they are similar.
Taliban?
I absolutely stand by that.
Well, what a fool
I'm
you are.
saying the view of women that the Taliban have, that they must be silenced and accept dictates from men.
Okay, you think that's okay to compare me to the Taliban?
No, I said trans activists. If you're saying
I don't think Belinda was directly
literally exactly what she said.
To
Play the tape back.
Benjamin.
I mean, it's embarrassing for you.
I'm really
the
not
truth is that this is a distraction from the fact.
Topic on both sides.
Well, I'm not going to compare Belinda to the Taliban. Call me polite.
Oh, well, you've called me much worse, Benjamin, on this show, and I put up with it.
You're very rude, actually, Belinda. Look, the truth is that this is a distraction.
You've been apart for 6 weeks. Have you not missed each other?
He's missed me,
I'm not aware I missed you, but
it's always
the
this
truth
topic,
is
isn't
that
it?
more than 7 million people are on waiting lists.
Yes.
So the idea that the problem with the NHS is some small pin badges, or the idea that in the very unusual circumstance where you have a transgender person who's able to give birth that doesn't identify as a woman, that they should be called something else.
Is anyone saying, though, that this is the main
compassion.
issue with the NHS? I don't think we're saying this is
I think that's exactly what you're trying to do, because that's why you obsess over this, because you know the Tories are failing on it. And the fact is that, of course, I don't think that a woman who gives birth shouldn't be called a woman or a mother. And these policies never say that. What they say is that in the instance that you had a transgender person affected by that, that they shouldn't be called a mother.
No, I mean, they've changed the literature to call things chest feeding. I mean, look, I'm a mum. I'm proud to be a mum. I'm not a feminist. I'm a meritocrat. But I'm proud to be a mum. I breastfed my child. And we should not insult women or actually insult the fact that we've got two biological genders. That's the fact. And we should not be silencing people. It's wrong, Benjamin.
I mean, I think it's quite evident that they're not silenced. This idea that there is some trans
of going against it out of the cancel culture. If you're in the NHS and you say, no, I don't agree with this, I don't adhere to gender ideology, you're at risk of losing your job.
Care, not on ideology. Ideology should just not come
Benjamin,
into
can I ask you a serious question, though? Because
it'd be a change, but please do.
Even you must admit that a lot of folk have been cancelled.
No, I don't.
For questioning this ideology. Graham Linehan, J.K. Rowling, I could list a whole load.
I mean, Graham Linehan, a man that I'd never heard of until he started talking about these things. J.K. Rowling, an author worth $1 billion. The idea they've been cancelled is farcical. Meanwhile, real trans people who are trying to get around in life face incredible levels of abuse from their family, from their workplaces, in the streets if they don't pass as the gender they identify as. Those are the people who are cancelled in their lives. And the idea that they are controlling all these MPs and newspaper columnists and TV presenters is a joke.
OK, passionate stuff. But look, moving on, I've long been warning about how in this country and throughout the West, the addictive Chinese social media app TikTok has been turning our brains to mush. I mean, I was discussing it with Nigel earlier in the show. I'm not getting on there myself. But it really is illustrated perfectly by this latest deranged trend. So this is the #egg prank, where parents have been breaking eggs on the skulls of their unsuspecting toddlers, which is apparently just hilarious. Understandably, many of the innocent kids are visibly distressed, and one medical expert has even told the Washington Post we're talking about abuse disguised as having a bit of a laugh. Look for yourself at this really shocking video.
We're gonna crack one egg. You ready?
Yeah. I don't like that.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna crack the egg.
Wow, Mommy.
I crack it, okay?
Can I crack it though? Ow! That hurt!
Child abuse or just a bit of fun, Dame Andrea?
Oh, I think child abuse, that's horrible. As a mum myself.
I know.
I just want to put my arms around those children.
Benjamin, bit of fun?
It's deranged. I mean, why would anybody want to do that? Even if the kid thinks they want to, the parent should know better than hitting them with an egg.
Are you three on TikTok?
I am on it a little bit, but not
I'm
massively.
not, but, you know, I typed my name into TikTok. It's a mistake, let me tell you.
I bet you're very popular on there.
There's 32 million views with my name on it. I've not made a penny from it. I feel like Guy Goma from the
Pitch from Butterworth. Dame Andrea Jenkins-Berland and Lucy. Do stand by, because coming up, those 77 NHS trusts that have signed up to the NHS Rainbow Badge scheme could be left regretting their woke gender obsession as I crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But next, is Meghan Markle's mother turning up on the A-list Hollywood circuit alongside the Kardashians, further proof of the family's desperation for fame? And does Prince Andrew's appearance at a Balmoral church service alongside William and Kate mark the end of a royal family divide? Well, my royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, have some major exclusives on this. They're live in just 2 minutes' time.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Time now for our Royal Masterminds. And in a collaboration that no one saw coming, Meghan Markle's mother, Doria Ragland, has been snapped alongside Keeping Up with the Kardashian stars Kris Jenner and Kim Kardashian. The trio were attending a glitzy event in LA for a charity called This Is About Humanity. And Doria went unaccompanied by her daughter. According to the reports, though, the Duchess is doing the opposite of taking herself away from the limelight. That's because her return to Instagram is imminent, and the Mail on Sunday reports that she could rake in $1 million per post through brand partnerships. So, Lady C, lots going on here. Why is Doria Ragland, a humble yoga teacher who never wanted any fame, never wanted the spotlight, all of a sudden hanging out in front of the paparazzi with Kim Kardashian and Kris Jenner? Something's changed, Lady C. What's happening?
Well. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Jen, thank God for GB News, because at least we don't, we get an opportunity to put things in their proper context. First of all, there's absolutely no way Meghan Markle is ever going to get $1 million for any posting. If she gets 30,000, she's doing really well. That's the first thing. The second, all this nonsense about $1 million, it's bigging her up, and it's ridiculous. She's not got one decent deal from any A-list company. And, really, when you stop to think of it, her mother, Doria, is photographed between Kris Jenner and Kim Kardashian. I mean, has our royal family sunk so low that it is regarded as desirable that the mother-in-law of a British duke is going to be excited about being stuck between a mother and a daughter whose fame was due to a sex tape, and then having induced the boyfriend to cooperate with the sex tape, they then proceeded to say that the boyfriend had taken advantage when they are the ones who took advantage. I mean, the whole thing is so unsavory. It stinks to high heaven. I'm sorry. It's just disgusting.
Phil Dampier, what do you make of it? Because I thought Doria just wanted a normal life. That's what Meghan always told us.
Yeah, good evening, Sam. Well, I'm told that Doria Ragland has always kept a very low profile because she's absolutely terrified of doing anything that would upset Harry or Meghan, and she would be out in the cold a bit like her ex-husband, Meghan's father. So to see her out and about is quite fascinating. I mean, clearly she's mixing with the Kardashians to get a bit of publicity. I mean, if they're going to learn from them, if Meghan is going to go back on Instagram, go back on Twitter, relaunch the twig, why not learn from the masters at influencing? So she's obviously been given permission, if you like, by Meghan to go out on this. I'm surprised Meghan didn't accompany her, but if it gives a bit of a boost before she starts going back on Instagram, then it's understandable. And Lady C's probably right, she can't earn that sort of money, but I'm sure she can earn good money from it.
OK, the other big royal news, of course, what is being seen as a statement from the Windsors, with the Prince and Princess of Wales arriving at a church service in Balmoral, with Prince Andrew in the front passenger seat. They're, of course, all holidaying together in Scotland, and royal sources have told the Daily Telegraph that this marks an end to any talk of a family divided. Obviously, Lady C, slightly ironic because the division really comes with the fact that Harry and Meghan were not invited. But what did you make of the fact that William and Kate clearly wanted to offer some sort of public olive branch to Prince Andrew?
Well, you know, Dan, the fact of the matter is Prince Andrew has never been ostracized by the family. I know of shooting weekends he's been on, shooting weekends he's hosted. You know, he has a full, active social life quietly. He's never been ostracized by the family. They are fully aware of the fact that he fell on his sword to preserve his mother's Jubilee celebration. And, you know, the fact that he is not going to be allowed back into public life doesn't alter the fact that privately he is and has been all along a fully paid up member of the family. They just didn't want him flaunting himself, but they've not ostracized him at all.
Phil Dampier, I mean, I do understand that, but at the same time, William in particular was very clear that he thought Andrew shouldn't return to a public role. So the fact that he is being pictured in public with Andrew, even if it's not at a formal event, it's in a car, it's still... It feels to me, Phil, like there is a view, and I am open-minded on this, and I've said this for some time, I'm open-minded on this, I'm prepared to look at the facts, that Andrew was perhaps the victim of a smear campaign and there was a rush to judgment.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to find out more about in the future. But I think William's definitely now the sort of power behind the throne. And there's no doubt that he very much supported his father and very much was the driving force behind Andrew being stripped of his titles, stripped of his military posts. So, yeah, it was significant to see him in the car with him, I think. We discussed this a week ago. You've got to make a distinction between him not coming back as a working royal, but also getting on with the family. But, of course, if he's chucked out of Royal Lodge, Andrew, and that seems to now be on the back burner, the person who's most likely to move in there are, of course, William and Kate. So he's going to want to keep in with them, and doubtless some interesting conversations in that car on the way to church.
Lady C, do you also think this is a bit of the family, especially William and Kate, acknowledging the wishes of the late Queen? Nearly a year since her death, she did not want her favourite son ostracised from private family events.
Well, absolutely. You know, she didn't, and Andrew has made a sacrifice and it needs to be acknowledged. And I'm glad that the family is acknowledging it. I mean, they're doing it quietly, but you know, there's a distinction between Andrew, the public person, and Andrew, the private individual. And of course, he has to be seen in public with them sometimes. But that doesn't mean that it's a public engagement that he has an official capacity fulfilling. It's just a private event.
Lady Colin Campbell. Phil Dampier, my royal masterminds, thank you both so much. We will speak later in the week. But it's time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel return. Dame Andrea Jenkins, who are you going to nominate as your Greatest Britain today?
This week, Dan, Suella Braverman. It's great to have a cabinet minister speaking like a true Conservative.
Benjamin Butterworth, who's your nominee?
Mine's a woman from Bermondsey called Henrietta Onyema. She had her church food bank close, and so she started going out and buying food and giving it to her neighbours who couldn't feed themselves or were vulnerable and elderly, and paying for it from her own pocket.
Here's some footage of her doing this.
Yeah, I think that's the most amazing generosity. And actually, I looked her up, and when the Queen died, as we mentioned about a year ago, she opened her home to strangers who were queuing to watch the lying in state so that they could use her bathroom. She just sounds like the most wonderful, great, ordinary Briton, so I thought I should highlight that.
Oh, good on her. Good on Henrietta. Like to hear that. Belinda de Lucy, who's your nominee for Greatest
My Greatest Brit is Guido Fawkes. One of their senior reporters did a little investigation to help Sadiq Khan really understand what he was going on about with toxic air, and found out that toxic air was far higher in London in the underground than it was up on top, proving that if Sadiq really cared about toxic air, he'd be focusing on the underground, not cash grabbing from the working class up top.
Yeah, look, I've got to go with Guido Fawkes, actually, as today's Greatest Britain, because I watched this investigation, Belinda. The video is fascinating because it's not just a small difference with air quality. The air quality down on the tube, according to their thing, was something like 145. Then you get down to street level, and it's about 5. So, you know, it's a total
It's not about toxic air.
And Khan is not telling us to stop taking the tube, that's for sure. Andrea Jenkins, your Union Jackass nominee.
Former Australian Prime Minister, who was actually born in Barry, Wales, Julia Gillard, for failing to identify what a woman is and actually trying to stoke up saying that it's a gotcha moment in Britain when you get asked this question.
Yeah, shall we have a little look at this moment? Because it was awkward, I agree. Watch.
What is a woman? Look, I'm very happy to answer your question, but in the UK, if you're listening to the radio, you literally, there'll be some person on there from London City Council who's trying to tell you why the traffic's not going to flow well that day. And the journo will be saying, and can you tell me what a woman is? To try and create these gotcha moments.
She wasn't very happy to answer the question because she didn't answer the question. Very shocking from Australia's first female Prime Minister. Benjamin Butterworth, your Union Jackass nominee.
Well, it's a foreign one today. It's the boss of Spain's FA Football Association. The man who planted a kiss on a player who just won the World Cup for them against England, didn't consent, and now he's refusing to resign. He seems like a pretty despicable character. The idea is mum's on hunger strike, saying that he's a subject of witch
I feel
hunt is
sorry for the
absurd.
mum. I feel sorry for her mum.
Well, the mum would be doing a lot better if he just resigned, because you shouldn't kiss people
we should be able to
that don't
eat
want to
again.
kiss you.
Should be able to eat again, at least. Belinda de Lucy, your Union Jackass nominee.
It has to be the NHS hospitals that have signed up to erasing female language like women and motherhood from their literature and their lingo.
OK, well, I'm not going to allow you and Benjamin to fight about that again. We've been there today, but I'm going to go with Julia Gillard as Union Jackass, Belinda de Lucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Thank you all so much. I'm back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Big show tomorrow. It's ULEZ Day. We have Susan Hall, the Conservative Tory party mayoral candidate, Jim Davidson and Richard Tice. Next up, though, it's headliners. Good night.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the next few days, the changeable theme will continue. Most of us seeing some further rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. So as we end Monday, we've got this ridge of high pressure across the UK. This generally gave us a settled day today, but fronts are waiting up across the northwest, and as we go through the course of the night, we'll see one of these move into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So some showers here. For a lot of England and Wales, though, it should be largely dry, but fairly cloudy. So that will help keep most towns